Okay, my friends, it's Roger Mud Fossil University. This starts a brand new day, and we are going to be examining all the different mud fossils, and the anatomy, and physics, and atomic nucleuses, and health, and our history. Everything that you have ever thought about, we are going to investigate. And when I say investigate, we're going to look at the things that have been unexplained or I think have been incorrectly portrayed. And that consists of 100% of everything there is. And I am not kidding. Virtually everything has been misunderstood, and it starts with the electrons. An electron flood theory is my theory about the entire universe only has electrons. There's no gigantic protons, no gigantic neutrons, no gigantic anything. All there is these electrons, and there's a weak force and a strong force. Right? And they can actually be separated into what they call fermions and bosons. That's the explosive part. And that's the non-explosive glue, literally. And I'm going to show you that is glue. And we're going to see this in a minute. Because you have to start by understanding nuclear makeup. Once you understand what molecules are made out of, then everything's easy. Because electron flood theory shows how all of these things move in together and how hydrogen works and all that. They have very, very little understanding of anything right at this moment because they started from a wrong understanding of what atoms are made of. So everything from there was wrong, and everything starts there. So what do you got? 100% wrongness as far as I'm concerned. And then they pushed away all of our ancient history to make way for, a big bang from nothing created everything, and intelligence and life, and me talking here and all this. That does not work. We'll discuss that. I'll let you discuss that. I want to talk about that, how you figure all these things happen. When I can show you things that are so misunderstood that they will make you start to think if you are thinkable. And there's a lot of people that can't think. They're never going to think because they've already turned it off. Already, as soon as I started talking about something that is outside of their realm of indoctrination, they've already gone. And those people, at this point, I know the type they are, and they are never going to come back, so I don't care. So we're going to go for you people that have thoughts, and you are still with me thinking about the things that I'm speaking about. And now we're going to go and look at how electrons work and how energy is created and how the sun spits out all these particles that rub against our atmosphere and create these different Schumann frequencies. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, so you understand that I say that the nucleus of everything is made only of electrons, and the smallest nucleus there is hydrogen, and it has 1,837 electrons. Now, I didn't realize this, but now I've come to realize that the dark, remember I said there's a weak force and a strong force? The black one is the weak force, but that is gravity. That is the particle, and I believe it's also dark matter, dark energy, and the gravity force. And I can say that because I see these particles clustered together with the blacks attached to the whites, and the whites able to come up right next to each other. And they don't normally do that. The only way they do that is when they are attached to a block. And I will show you this. Now, these are magnets. I hope you can see this. I had to turn the lights down so maybe you can see this. If you could see, you see the white film around that? Oops. These are different styles of magnets, but this is a certain, the normal magnet like they make it out of some kind of mix, and it has magnetic particles in it, and then they make them into bar magnets and curved magnets like this, which is in a electric motor. Now, look around the edge. You see all that white fuzziness? You see that? And you say, well, the dark is in the center. The dark is the dark particles. The white is the white particles. They're on the outside. And I never realized this. I thought they had to be attached to each other, but I don't think they do. I think they can push to the center in magnetic situations. And the white particles, which is, to me, the electron portion, moves to the outer edge. Now, I say that because not only can I see the fuzzy here, and you can see, I hope you can see how glowy that is. Now look over here. Let me get this one out of here. Now, look at this. This is one of those neodymium ones, and these babies are really powerful. Now look at how little white is around the edge of that. It's almost entirely black, and then the tiniest little bit of white strip. That means to me that the black portion is really the puller. The black portion is pulling these whites in tighter than the black portion in this one. All right, because this is neodymium, and it has a certain number of electrons excess, and I believe there's, I'm sorry, I got to do a lot more work on this. I'm going to tell you that right now, because this just came to me that the more powerful it is, the tighter the field is that surrounds the blackness. All right? You see, and you can see it as you come onto it. You see it way out here? You see how fuzzy that is? Way out. I'm way away from it now. As I come in tighter, 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 it pulls those particles in right and snugs them right to that central core. And these things are, boy, are they strong. Now, here's a bunch of little ones, and I think these are all neodymium as well. Now look at what they do here. You see how you have the little black core and the white surrounding it? I don't know if you can see that. I guess maybe you can. Each one of those balls has a polarity to it. Now watch, if I take just one and I put it here. Now I'm going to roll this across it. All right, there it is right on there. There's the ball. Now you see it? You see what it's doing there? You're halfway in between the two. That's just that one ball rolling by itself. So there's a field going this way and a field going that way, it looks to me. So anyway, you saw how each one of these controls its own region. And then it's totally white around itself. And those whites have to mix somehow with the other whites that are next to it. Now, if they're in like that, in the crux of it, like in that little divot, that's a much stronger adhesion than if it was out here, I would think. Or if two of them were close, like, well, let me put it this way. In 3 dimensions, you got a ton of variations. Some can sit right on the end of the other ones, some can sit straight out. So, now, we've seen how tightly organized the black is and sucks the whites up against it in the neodymium ones. Now, we've also seen how this holds it a little looser. Now, this is the same thing. It holds it the same looseness as the other one there, as this style. They're the same style magnet. Now, check this out. I never realized this, but you know what the magnetism is on this? You'd say, well, I don't know, Roger. Let me think. You take these two and you put them, they won't go together here. They push away. But if I turn it, they go this way. Why? You say, well, there's a North Pole here, the North Pole here, South Pole here, whatever. No. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But check this out. I'm going to take this. Watch this. If you can recharge these little films. If you do it, see it? Turn it a little white again. Now, watch what happens. Right down the center of the magnet is going to be where the strip is. Boom. You see it? Black on both sides, white, straight down the center. I never knew that. I always thought it had to be like one side or the other, but it's not. It's right down the center. Now, if we take two magnets and put them side by side, what do you think is going to happen? There should be one right here and one right here, right? Well, let's see what does happen. Boom. It mixes them, it brings them together here, sloppy. All right, it's not tight. You see, it's not tight in the center. The centers were here before on each one of these. Watch. Ooh. Oops. Oh, bugger. All right, now watch. In the center, boom, there it is in the center. All right, magnet numero uno. Boom, there it is right in the center. Magnet number 2. I take them together. Put them together like this, and we're going to see it come down here. Now, all these little fractures create a little sloppy look to it too. But you can see it's moved. The line of polarity is here and here, but they have sort of merged in together, and now the blacks are both on both sides. But it's a different situation. I mean, there's so much to investigate with this, man. The ends seem to be very powerful. And the sides seem to have very little, well, who knows. Anyway, we are just going to be going like crazy with this. And this is what I feel represents a photon. And we saw that we had black and white on all of these particles. Right? This really is one of those. Whoops. This, if you could think about it, is that. All right, and it has all. Remember, I flopped it, and you could see same thing as this. Now, as that goes through the air and it hits another one, there's going to be a region right there that might explode, or that one might explode. One of them's not going to concuss, the other one is. So you're going to end up getting a spin. And it appears that the right-hand spin is the rule, and it's called the right-hand rule. And these particles start to spin like crazy in the right-hand spin. Now, that, again, is a photon. That's the photon. Now, those bounce off of other things and create luminosity, light. We see it as different light. And it depends on how strong the string that it bounces against is. And really, it's just like a string. It's a bond between particles. Just like we can see when you push a magnet against the other, you can feel it. You can feel there's something in between there. Well, that's a bond that if I threw something and banged it, it would bounce off depending how strong or how pulled or tight that bond is. Just like a guitar string. Ding, a real tight one, and boing, a real big. It could still be tight, but it's big. When it flops through the airwaves, it doesn't have the same action. So now let's go a little deeper. Again, now that you should have some form of an understanding, the particles that we're looking at, and what I believe is occurring is that electron flood theory, once again, says that there is nothing but electrons, and we saw that the center can collect all the positives, which are the non-reactive pieces, the ones that don't explode. They're the weak portion, but they seem to be the glue, because they go to the center, everything else surrounds it. And that's why particles bang into each other. They try to push each other apart, or they become attracted because the glue in the center is so attractive that it forces the other particle to incorporate to itself. That's fusion. And then there's fission, where they break apart and then they become other particles. Now, but the only way we can have any of these things happen, and the isotopes that occur everywhere, and all the unstable and stable different isotopes of each one of these, has a bazillion of them. It's the only way it's possible is to have each one of these, the protons is made out of 1837 electrons. There is no such thing as anything but electrons. Let's just get past that. All right, now let's keep going. We're going to go through this whole thing. I'm going to make you understand atomic physics. And I'm going to show you right now, they don't understand it. Okay, so now you know my contention is that there is a bazillion particles, not just protons and neutrons. Every proton is 1,837 particles, every neutron is 1,838. They're all electrons and they're all dipoles, and one side is very strong and one side is very weak. Shown it a million times.
Think about this. The visible universe consists mostly of less than 100 naturally occurring elements. Yet there's an immense diversity and complexity reflected in not only the myriad of substances that can be found in the universe, but also substances that can be found within your own body. How is it that we can have a near boundless number of chemical substances with only about 100 relatively simple building blocks called atoms to work?
Because they're not relatively simple. Every one of these consists of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of particles. And then you can attach to that and subtract from that, and in between all of those are what they call isotopes. So in between gold or copper or silver, you might have 20 or 30 different isotopes that are versions that are close but not real close, and they say they're stable and some are not stable. And then there's a zillion of them they have no idea about because they come and go so quick in the catalytic conversions using enzymes and so forth. And that's what makes our body run, is the enzymes that create chemistry and catalyze these different breakdowns of particles to make different molecules in your body to make you function, your nutrition, your oxygen, your energy, all of that stuff. And it's done by the fact that there is bazillions of particles in between every one of these. And they shake till they get stable at a certain number of particles in a certain mass. That's how it works. All right, let's go back.
This is because the naturally occurring atoms are rarely found alone. They're mostly found in combinations with other atoms through the process of chemical bonding. The combinations of chemicals and materials that can be built with these various combinations is so vast that it can give rise not only to the variety of phenomena that we can observe in the universe, but also the complexity required to create life, fuel for energy that we need, consciousness that we enjoy, and every other macro-scale process that affects us. Why is the universe not full of just 100 different types of atoms floating around in a sea of dull monotony? Lucky us that these atoms bond together to form rich chemicals that have properties fundamentally different than the atoms comprising them. Why does this happen? The answer to this important question lies in understanding the role that energy plays in the formation of molecules and its roots in where else but quantum mechanics. That explanation is coming up right now.
This guy is very good. I like him. He makes a nice presentation.
Chemicals to us, like the air we breathe, consists not of individual atoms, but molecules. Oxygen, for example, is not found in the air as individual oxygen atoms, but as O2, or two oxygen atoms bound together. Nitrogen is also found as N2, two nitrogen atoms bound together. Water, without which we could not survive, is H2O, two atoms of hydrogen combined with one oxygen atom. Why are atoms prevalent mostly as molecules? The key to understanding why atoms link together is energy. All natural systems tend to adopt a state of lowest energy.
Okay, this is exactly correct. Now, the state of lowest energy, how does that happen, Arvin? How did the atoms come about? And why is hydrogen the state of the lowest energy, but it's extremely explosive? Now, I believe these different groups relate to the different Schumann frequencies. This is just a guess, but these different, I am seeing that there's layers in the atmosphere that are the Schumann frequency layers, and they literally build like eggshells, one right after the other, like a Russian doll, and it's push to shove, so that it has impacts on the outside, it pushes through that layer and bumps this layer. And then this layer pushes through its layer and bumps the next layer, that type of thing. A little bit complicated, but we'll go over it in a minute. Okay, so now it's Roger once again. Roger, now that I'm in my official capacity. Now, here's what we got. Electron flood theory. I talked about the Schumann resonances, and I talked about the different groups, okay, on the periodic chart. Now, what do they have to do with the Schumann frequency? And how is the Schumann resonance even set up? Well, you know that I say the sun puts out particles of light, which are photons, and a photon consists of those particles that I'm sure I showed you already, and there's a black spot and a white spot back to back. That's the photons. When they come and saturate the solar system, our planet spins through it. Here's the Earth right here. It's spinning around like this, and it's crushing into these particles that are being spit out from the sun. So it's literally rubbing the white parts, because the white is the only one that pushes. So the white part of this one hits the white part of this one at the outer limit of our atmosphere, and it scrubs, and it's hot out there. It's very hot. And that creates the ionosphere and the magnetosphere, which are the regions that are loaded with electrons. That's why it's the magnetic area and the ionic area. The ions are particles that are polar. No. And they're scrubbing, scrub, 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 scrub. That's what creates our magnetic fields and so forth. Now, what happens when it pushes these? They got to be pushed. Now, that's what I call push to shove. It pushes, these shove back. Now, they have to push somebody to be able to shove back this way, so this is going to come down. These are going to try to push back, but at the same time, they're going to push the next layer down, down this way. These are going to push back, push down, push back, push down, push back, push down, and the Earth will take them. Remember this now. I am saying these are the pushy parts, the white parts. They are the things that collect on you as static. They are the things that collect in the atmosphere as lightning. They are the things that we see now have saturated. They've saturated the fields here. And the Earth doesn't really want them anymore. The Earth used to say, give me all your electrons, give me your weak, give me your strong, give me your electrons. And they would come down, and of course they still do. They hit the Earth and they heat it up. That's what they do. They go into the Earth and heat it up. That's what does it, is electrons. Now, so the Earth is only capable of having so many extra electrons, just like any other particle. The Earth, let's say, is a particle. It says, okay, I'll take enough electrons, but don't give me too many. You can, whoa, too many. And the reason is because of all the combustion we have done, releasing all of these extra electrons into the atmosphere. So we got a bazillion extra of these that we should never have had here. Or we should be able to stop. And we can stop by burning water instead of fossil fuels. Hydrogen and oxygen is water, and it will burn hotter than hell. And if you add a little impurity to it and then put some kind of a catalytic converter on the other end where the exhaust is to extract that molecule, we could burn water. We'll talk about that later. Well, I did. I put a video up about it. Anyway, these are the Schumann frequencies. And guess what? Your heartbeat is exactly 7.8 hertz. I believe it's 7.83, something like that, which is exactly what the first Schumann frequency is. Now, a heartbeat is a magnetic pulse. It's a magnetic pulse, just like this. That's a magnetic pulse. This one here fills this layer up, and then it pulses down. This layer fills up with these particles because they're pushing. It says, I can't take anymore. I said, well, drop them down here. Boom. they drop down. This is, whoa, 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 I'm going to try to get you back. He says, I'm sorry, I got to come down here. And it comes down, it comes down, it comes down. Then the earth takes it. The earth heats up, the water heats up, your buildings heat up, the atmosphere gets boiled. Water, molecules, winds, hurricanes, tornadoes. And the earth itself will wrench. And you'll have earthquakes and all that other business. Now, not only that, it accounts for the sprites and the blue jets and all that stuff they're talking about. The blue jets are more powerful, and they are trying to shoot up because they can't. They used to come down all the time. You never saw these red sprites. They only started picking them up 25, 30 years ago. They started seeing the first ones occur. And now they're seeing them pretty regular. And I mean, they are powerful. And what they do is they try to, a whole batch of electrons will collect in a layer. And it doesn't matter what layer it is, or it might matter. I'm just talking right now. But the red sprites, all of a sudden, they will say, I just have too many electrons in here. And it'll be this layer right in here. And it'll say, they're all balling in here like ball lightning. It's virtually the same as ball lightning. And they have collected in a batch so powerful that it says, I can't take it anymore. Boom! They go up. And when they hit, you see them come out of here like glow, massive glows. And this whole region will look reddish, as like a red hue. And then you see they'll come down here, little dribbles will be coming back down in red. Nothing like the concussion going up. And that's because this one says, no, you got way too much. Get back. And it pushes the back down as much as it can. It's already absorbed a ton of it. But we have so much push to shove now that our atmosphere is so turbulent and our Earth is so overheated. And that's why fires and all of these things happen. Fires are related to floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and virtually everything that's happening. Now, if we could work off of water instead of hydrocarbons, so that's a whole new day. And that's why I put up about burning hydrogen and oxygen through a venturi. Because a venturi will concuss these particles so extreme that they will break into their actual magnetic parts, non-concussive, explosive. I think we can separate this into oxygen, this one into hydrogen. When you bring them back together, now we got extreme amounts of energy, and all it is electricity. They never understood that the core of everything was nothing but electrons. That's why they could never understand Brown's gas. They could really never account for anything, even gravity. I mean, all of that stuff is a mystery to everybody because they have to stay with Einstein's theory, which I have absolutely shown, no question whatsoever, is wrong. I've shown the light as a particle. I've shown the light accelerate. I've shown the light actually divide. You know, Rod Warren and I have been doing this for years. For years. The venturi separates particles, and they used it in the carburetors, and my father used it to separate oxygen and hydrogen to burn in a car during World War II. And the problem was they didn't realize it. They were creating so much extra electricity and literally and welding the pistons in there, and they were burning the pistons, I believe. And they ended up having to go to a different route, and I've explained this, and I think they're still doing this right now. I saw in, I think it's, I can't remember who it was, but one of the, Daimler, one of them is, well, I'm not experimenting, well, they're using it. They're using hydrogen gas to replace the regular gas or diesel or whatever it was, the fluid. And they're getting a 70% reduction in emissions because they're using the hydrogen. But they have to produce the hydrogen with electricity. I'm producing a hydrogen, or we should, with a venturi. The venturi will do it. It's tuning the venturi, finding the right you know, and I think I might have already explained it, and I think I did, but I will explain it in as much detail as I can, because I'm starting to get people that are talking about, oh, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that. Well, because it's easy to do. A kid can do this in the backyard with an old lawnmower. All you're using is the little carburetor. When you pull that piston down, it sucks the air through the valve stem down into the piston. Then the stem closes off and the piston gets a compression and explodes. Well, when we suck this down through there, instead of having gasoline, we're going to have water, and the water being coming through there, it will separate the hydrogen and oxygen. You know, I mean, we got work to do. It's not just like we go out there in 15 minutes we're doing this. But I can see the chemistry works, everything works. Everything, and my father said he did it. All right? And he absolutely wasn't lying to me. And he said he did it, and they said they ended up, as I can recall, and it is foggy, I got to be perfectly honest with you, but as I recall, they had problems with the pistons, and it was related to melting or knocking or cracking or something like that. And the end result was they still used the water, but they had to use it with kerosene. Now, I don't know if there was a big improvement or what happened. I have no idea at that point. But I can see with some of the new technologies we have now and understanding electron flood theory, we should be able to get literally electricity from the hydrogen and oxygen, actual electricity, because that's all it is. Brown's gas is nothing more than hydrogen that has so many extra electrons into it. Instead of having a hydrogen, all right, let's take this. I know this is helium. Let's say that was hydrogen. It has 1,837 electrons. See, hydrogen 1. Well, let's say we pushed it to 2,000 electrons or 2,500 electrons. Then it's Brown's gas, and it wants to get rid of those electrons, and all they are is electricity. That's why Brown's gas is so powerful. I've shown this in great detail, and it all makes sense, and it is the only thing that does make sense, and we have to get away from Einstein's theory of, you know, it's particles, and it's, I mean, they're not particles, they're waves, and there's no mass, and you can't accelerate it. All that stuff is wrong. It's all wrong. I've shown it's 100% wrong. Right? So they have to turn their way away from that and at least consider this. They can consider anything they want, but if I make more sense to them, which I do, then I should be considered too. All right, I've been showing this new particle for years, and they're finally giving it up and admitting it. New boson appears in nuclear decay breaks standard model. Well, I'm showing it in the decay of light, which is no more than the smallest that's in nucleus too, because nucleuses are made of electrons just like everything is. So they're looking for the nuclear decay particle of light. I'm starting with light. So that's the whole difference. Plus, I have seen the actual light particle itself divide into the weak and the strong force. All right? They know it's not right. That's only about 6 months ago. All right, here they're admitting here, the Royal Institute, again, about 6 months ago, they admitted that they lepton universality breaks the standard model. They can't account for it. I'll have her actually tell you this in a second. The 875,000 of the biggest geeks in the world, the Royal Institution in London. All right, I believe it's right here.
Electron stays and lepton universality seems to be violated. Well, what that means is that there's something wrong with the standard model. We found the crack, finally, in our understanding of particle physics. There's absolutely no way that we can explain this observation with our current understanding. In fact, the only way we think we can explain what's going on is if there are new particles in the universe associated with new physics processes beyond those that we understand.
That's exactly what it is. They are not new particles. They are just that they always went back to Bohr saying there's one gigantic nucleus, it's all positive. It's not the way it was. I've known this from the day I started in electronics and into chemistry and all that stuff. It's impossible. It's just literally impossible. and it's just obviously impossible. So now they realize everything's wrong. Let's do it right.